Welcome to Mastering Life's Adventures, an educational podcast about tapping into your true self, the soul, the substance of your life, to discover what life's ups and downs are really about, and how to have a greater sense of purpose, peace, joy, and fulfillment. I am Dr. Judith Holder, your host, coach psychologist, fellow seeker who enjoys diving into the connections between spirituality, psychology, wellness, and your everyday life's adventures. All preparing and polishing you like the facets of a magnificent diamond to be your best self. If you're craving more from your life, you are in the right place. Come, let's journey together and transforming what you know into who you really are. Mastering Life's Adventures begins now. Hi, I'm back with a special guest. And Karen will introduce herself, and we're here to talk about something that I think will be very interesting. We're going to be talking about creativity, inspiring soul expression. We're going to talk about this through the experiences in which Karen has gone through and just kind of the thoughts that I have as we're moving along. So Karen, why don't you introduce yourself?
Thank you so much. I'm grateful to be here. I'm Karen DeLoach, artist, art coach, speaker, and creativity specialist.
Which is wonderful because we're going to use that specialty in order to talk about your experiences with when did creativity come up for you, childhood to adulthood. Tell us a little bit more about your experiences.
Yeah, you're right. It is a lifelong expression, and it is a lifelong of practicing. We call ourselves practicing artists because we're always practicing, we're always learning. But as a child, I was raised by a father who was an Irish seller. He was even on vaudeville as a young teenager and always had stories to tell, was a very intelligent, constantly learning person. And what I didn't realize until later in life was the deep wounds he'd experienced as a youngster that caused him to become an alcoholic. I felt like there was a lot of creativity that wasted after his career in the Marine Corps, believe it or not. He took up painting and drawing. I was able to teach him, and some of my sister and I have the most valuable things we own are his paintings that he gave us in the later part of his life.
Yeah.
Creativity was always encouraged in my household. So at a very young age, I was putting on plays in the backyard using sheets as curtains and maybe fairy tale stories and modernizing them. In kindergarten, even, I was directing the other classmates into using playground equipment. This is the spaceship and it's landed and there's danger coming. This kind of creativity caused me to end up going to film school in my 50s. Before that, I went
Wow.
to art school and studied painting and drawing, and then in graduate school, sculpture and ceramics. And what I've found through the years is that most people have areas of creativity because we've been given this incredible right brain devoted to creativity. I don't see anybody that just has one area of creativity like yourself as a podcaster. You're using your brilliant left brain that has to find the clients and be orderly and timely and all the technical things that have to be correct and all of putting all that together of just wonderful left brain. And your right brain is you're creating brand new content. You're coming up with great ideas on titles and how to arrange these. So those two sides of our brain we want to use together to create these wonderful neural connections that make us even more brilliant. So this process for me, now that I'm in my 70s, has taken me on different roads, really trying to find a way to help people stir up their own creative gifts.
One of the things I'm hearing is that right left brain is right. And what I talk about is the whole brain. When you're utilizing and balancing it, it becomes a whole brain. So you're tapping into what you need to do as you need to do it. And that also means you're coming more into alignment with what our soul needs. One of the things I heard you say, Karen, is I always had it in me, even as a child, organizing things, orchestrating things, or putting on plays or whatever it may be. I always had it within me. And that's kind of delightful of the soul. When you connect to that, it frees me. It frees me to be more creative and more in attunement. Doesn't mean I'm not going to have my ups and downs, but at least you do hear me. You recognize that spark or that energy that is within you saying, this is what we want you to do. This is part of your mission that we want you to tap into if you're able to. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. And you hit the nail on the head when you said a lot of times it gets buried or or what I call trivialized, because our education system so left brain oriented, and we're taking tests and memorizing, and all of these are wonderful left brain skills. But if they're going to cut the budget, they're going to cut out theater, music, or art. They don't tend to recognize how incredibly valuable it is to the whole person to also develop their right brain's abilities. Talking about childhood, this is what I do with people. I say, what did you love when you were 5 and 6? Scientists say that 98% of 5 and 6-year-olds are creative geniuses, but
Mm.
only 2% of adults.
Mhm.
So what happened? Do they lose it? I don't believe it. I think it's just as you described. It gets buried under the very left brain responsibility and the details of life. We miss the big picture because our right brain connects to our imaginations and our intuition. As your program talks about the soul, that part, the parts of us that are deep, part of our emotions and our will and our mind, that are important to the fullness of being our whole selves. And without it, we don't feel the fulfillment. We can have a great career, we can make a lot of money, we can raise our families, but without engaging both sides of our brain, we're not going to really walk in the fullness of our capacity and our potential.
And that is so true, that people feel sometimes lost. Some people feel empty. They feel as if, well, I did achieve what everyone told me I was supposed to achieve, but what else?
Yeah,
What's
what
missing?
mhm.
Why
And
don't I feel like fulfilled? Because I did achieve the goal, did I not? And it is due to the fact that there is that not a connection, and what I call is the soul connection, the soul awareness that you're something greater than yourself, that there's more, that yes, you got the successes in the physical ways, which is wonderful, but are you connected to something greater than yourself, which I call the soul, which is the substance of your life, the substance of your life. It's not the junk food of your life, you know. It is the substance of your life. That's what the soul is wanting. That's the soul's quest. And in order for you to go through certain experiences, to be awaken to the talents of your soul, and also to unite with the Christic energy, the values of Christ, and what the Christ is trying to direct you in your specialness of who you need to be as you're evolving through life and in adulthood.
That's good. Yeah. The truth of our right brain, as I really believe it's connected, like you said, to the soul, it's our sensitive part, and it can be damaged and wounded easily. So you have a child coloring outside the lines because they see the whole paper. The teacher or classmates ridicule them. I've even had somebody tell me their kindergarten teacher ripped their paper up and gave them an F, or said, "This is unacceptable. You can't crayon outside the lines." And so she said in third grade, our friend said, "Let's go color." She's like, "I can't color." I'm already convinced that she can't do it because that part of her soul was wounded by the words. We grew up, sticks and stones might break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Words do hurt us. And so someone significant to us ridicules either the way we sing, dance, play an instrument, draw, or maybe we were trying to learn to knit from our grandmother, and because we're left-handed, we couldn't do it. Personal experience then, and just convinced, okay, I can't do it, and I hear so many adults say, "Oh, I can't even draw a stick figure. I can't draw a straight line. I can't." I call it the left brain bully, that critic, that part
Mhm.
of our brain that wants us to be perfect, maybe paralyzed by perfectionism. And it's all got to be taken out of the equation if you're going to be able to exercise and develop your incredible potential in your right side of your brain. So it's
One
not
of
an either or, it's a catch up thing.
Exactly. And one of the things we're going to add, what happens when those types of things happen in terms of a teacher telling you can't, or even a parent telling you can't do that, or you didn't do it the right way in terms of this creative energy that the person or the child has, it also puts the soul in a prison. And so creates a disconnection between the soul's desire to express in a different way than customary or traditional ways. That now creates a damper, that disconnection from the soul also moves us feeling a little bit more disconnected to not only our true essence, but also moves us into the self-esteem issues, low
Oh, yeah.
self-esteem, challenges with self-esteem. feeling as if we're not worthy of something or we can't do something. And so it does have a rippling effect that we don't realize. And I don't think parents are doing this intentionally. I don't think teachers are doing it intentionally. They're doing it based upon their learning and not realizing they may have a creative genius, as she said, and with them, and they don't know what to do about it.
That's a very good point. My experience, I had so many interests. I was interested in theater. I was interested in art and even sports. I went to a small women's college and I got to do all of it. It was a liberal arts school and I had really good drawing instruction in high school. So I went there knowing that I could draw with my peers, but I hadn't learned how to paint. So I made painting my major and theater my minor. By the time I got into my painting classes, my teachers hated my work. They couldn't stand it. I'm 19, 20 years old and taking teacher after teacher. Could somebody please help me? I wanted to paint people. I love people and places. And it was the era of these teachers had been trained with abstract expressionism. And I wanted to paint more naturally or impressionistically. My genre didn't go with what they wanted me to do. I left college totally convinced I could not paint. I went into sculpture and ceramics, which I still loved. But for the next 10 years, their words convinced me. Every time I tried to paint, I got married, started having these beautiful little boys and babies, and I wanted to paint them. I'd get to a certain point and I couldn't finish them. I had stacks of unfinished canvases because their words, their 4-letter words they would use to describe my work, kept me from moving forward in my career and in my love of art until I met a mentor, somebody that had been to the Chicago Art Institute and really learned the fundamentals of painting, not just express yourself. I don't know enough about who I am to express myself the way they wanted from me. I wasn't connecting with them until he taught me how to paint. As a result, I could build my skills and actually accomplish the work that I wanted to do for the first time in my life. It set me free. Those words can be a prison. Well, that's exactly what I was in. I was stifled as an artist. And since that time, we try to keep getting better. As I've gotten to know myself better and healed from my own childhood traumas, I've found that I have more to say with my paintings. And we are all so unique. And there's, abstract expressionism is a beautiful format, and I have done some, but I know I always go back to wanting it to really look like the person that's sitting in front of me or I have a photo of, or the scene that I just saw. I'm painting these beautiful landscapes and I live near the sea, so I've got seascapes and these wonderful sunrise, sunset scenes. Give me joy, and the people that look at my work and buy my work gives them joy. And I had to overcome those words. Goes back to those words.
Something that I think school systems have done is have this conformity. You got to conform to the curriculum or conform to what this particular person or teacher or professor or instructor or whoever is telling you to be able to, you have to do it this way. And not necessarily giving you the fundamentals and not necessarily even being aware that this is a growing process. And so, like you said, to express yourself, you got to know yourself. And so if you really wish to express yourself, in the truest way, what you actually ended up doing is you have to take a detour. And that's what the soul does. The soul does go on detours to what its real path wanted to be. It detoured this way, it detoured that way, in order to try to figure out how do I navigate in the world and navigate to getting to my trueness of who I am. And sometimes we get further and further away from that, but sometimes we get back on the main road. We continue to move forward. And you were able to do that through your mentor to help you to get those fundamentals. And that's what the soul wants too.
We homeschooled for that reason. My husband's a musician, a worship leader, an artist, and a writer, and I'm an artist, filmmaker. So we didn't have rocket science children. We had musicians and singers and songwriters and writer children. And they didn't do well. They weren't doing well in traditional sit in a box and be quiet. Especially my second son with ADHD and a little bit of dyslexia. He was not thriving even in private school. So we took him home, which meant I came home with my children and I became the art teacher for our community. We built a co-op community of homeschoolers here that built and bigger. Now there's like 600 in the co-op. But through that experience, I met other parents with children who had learning problems. They came into the studio, and this set me on my discovery process of what is going on with the arts? How is it so miraculously healing people? Because I saw it happening, not only for me and my family, but for other students. So this young man came, it was not thriving in school. He had dyslexia and ADHD and was very depressed. He could not believe that he could learn all that he needed to learn to get through the school system. His mom brought him to the studio, and I started working with him. This young man took to the arts like a duck to water. He was doing so well that I was entering his and my other students' work in a large youth art competition in our state. They were winning ribbons. They were winning awards. And it did something to him. You're talking about confidence, starting to find out, I'm not stupid just because I have these difficulties. His mom was wonderful at finding ways to help her son with his learning disabilities. Because of his success in the studio, he had the confidence to start dealing with those problems. He was able to graduate from high school. And his family was convinced that it was getting into the arts that helped him get that confidence. My sons, because they are musicians, struggled with some academics. But Ryan, my child that had the most reading problems, is now a writer. He writes fantasy fiction and illustrates it, and he's in a band. My sons moved to Germany to be in bands and to do music. Found beautiful German women to marry and are living there and giving me grandbabies 6,000 miles away, but they are living their creative lives. It's been difficult. COVID shut their country down for 3 years. They had no place to perform. So they just honed their music. They did studio time and wrote more. Now that things are opened up, they've got a producer. Things are opening up for them in ways that took all this preparation. You have listeners that may be thinking, I don't even know how to get started. I know I have this inside of me. And I'm telling you, there's so much opportunity. There's so much online. There's people like me that love to work and stir people up and help them develop the skills they need. At least for me, the visual arts or the performing arts. But there's also music. If you've ever learned an instrument, you start the same way, whether you're 5, 50, or 90. You're going to start having to know where your fingers go. It's the same thing with the arts. Everybody starts in the same place. There's just fundamentals that you need that will help you develop that skill. So I'm here saying to your audience, even if you don't identify as an artist, you've still got that incredible right brain wanting to be your best self. Help you.
Yeah, it's wonderful. You said a lot there. And some of the thoughts that came to my mind was sometimes our dyslexia or ADHD is actually a way that the Lord is trying to help us. Help us not get stuck into conformity. The parents being aware that maybe there's another avenue that this child needs to learn by. And so, and music and creativity, as you're talking about, or the arts and its many different phases and wonderful colors that they can get in dance, singing, as you're mentioning, that it puts a person to have to kind of move that direction first, get time tied to themselves, because sometimes these children know themselves a lot better than we give them credit for.
That's a
And they're
good
trying to
point.
go down a road that is a dirt road, but we want them to go down the paved road.
Good.
And the soul saying, no, no, we need to go down the dirt road a little bit. I do need help. I do need to learn certain things, but also give me a little bit more freedom, as the soul says, so I can express and experiment while I get the additional help to help me to be able to learn what I need to learn to be in society.
Yeah, we have a group that we meet in homes called Imagine Gatherings. It's really a worship group that wants to be free to worship God and using their gifts. And we have all ages. So I just love it when my husband has a bunch of hand drums and we have a lot of instruments around our house. Having these youngsters come in and start playing with the adults, seeing the multi-generations worshiping together, encouraging the younger people and seeing what comes out or encouraging them to sing. We're not going to be here judging. When I teach, now of course we're online, right? This is a no criticism zone. And that started in my own studio. studio. As I've taught art in college, I said the same thing to my college students. I made them not just learn art history, but they had to appreciate it and do it. This is a no criticism zone because criticism is in that left brain. We want to let the right brain be free to try something new. And I have exercises that I pull them out of their left brain into their right brain, and they're just amazed. And I love seeing when adults who believe they couldn't do it find out, oh yeah, you can. I'm working with a 77-year-old man right now who is diagnosed with Parkinson's, and he had an engineering career, which is very left brain, but he loved art and he took lessons. When he retired, he started painting and drawing. Then he got this diagnosis and his right hand stopped him. For the last couple of years, his family didn't even realize how he had stopped and how depressed he was. His son went to one of my workshops and said, you need to connect with my dad. And we did. He lives in Connecticut. I'm in South Carolina, but in the miracle of the internet, we could talk and connect. I started working with him this summer. And I've had so much feedback from his family saying he's not depressed, he's encouraged. I said, if this hand isn't working, you got another hand. I had a young student who thrived in my art classes and won first place in a big youth art competition. But then he had a traumatic brain injury through a brain infection that caused him to have a stroke and paralyzed him on the right side of his body. They saved his life, but they had to take his skull off. He has a plastic skull. So 4 months of therapy. Now, I'm not an art therapist. I want to make that clear. I'm an artist, an art teacher. Okay. This isn't from that kind of training. They did that with him in the hospital, but he came home. He couldn't talk. They were trying to keep him from curling up his right hand. He was dragging the right side of his body with a walker. And his mom brought him to my studio. He had already been developing those right brain, left brain connections as an artist. I said, let's try your left hand. Within a short time, he could draw as well left-handed as he could with his right hand. He started being able to talk. Then I get a call from his neurosurgeon who's like, I've never called anybody's art teacher before, but what are you doing with David? Because he's stronger with his weak hand than I am, and I'm a surgeon, and he's getting healing on the right side of his body. I'm just teaching him art, left hand. He said, don't stop. It's working. Well, I was astounded, and his family was astounded because in a short amount of time, he started being able to communicate and talk and express himself and write, and sure enough, start walking. Seeing him and his family, you would look at this handsome young man who's got his sense of humor back. He's not depressed and has a life worth living. And just like his neurosurgeon, we became convinced that art had a place in his healing.
I think you're so true. It's so right that art did have a place in his healing. But also, I think your care and love of what you do also transfers to him and gives him the motivation to keep on trying. And I
Well,
think
thank
sometimes that's one of the missing elements, that love goes a long way to help people do what they need to do to heal. Just as you said, when there's no CCJ, which is criticism, condemnation, and judgment, that is not
Ooh,
being done on people. We're needing to get out of that because it does create a roadblock to individual successes. You were able to do that very naturally by saying that into your creativity as, why not the left? Why do you get so stuck on the right? We're whole people. That which we can do to one side can mirror and help the other side of us. We are not intentionally aware of that, but at some level, intuitively, you were aware because your soul connected to something that was higher in his soul that allowed him, yes, we can do this. We can do it this way. Because of trust, which is another factor, love plus trust, and trusting that saying, okay, I'm willing to try, and you're willing to be consistent in helping him, you're having this wonderful outcome.
well, thank you for that. Yeah, I'm just convinced, so convinced that the arts, that all creativity is available to every person and that these gifts are there, as we've talked about from the beginning, and stirring them up. You feel it when you hear good music. Maybe you think, oh, I always wanted to play the piano. I'm in my 70s, and they're trying to tell us we're going to be in pain the rest of our life. We're going to be diminished in our mental capacities. And I'm like, Why? That's just not true. I think we get smarter as we get older and we lose the ability to have fun. Maybe we enjoyed it when our children were little, but we forgot how to have fun. Even Albert Einstein, who is considered one of the creative geniuses of the 20th century, said creativity is intelligence having fun. So there is a fun factor to finding that root. When we do engage that part of our personhood, then we are having more fun. We're enjoying our life more greatly. And when we build those left brain, right brain connections, we're more brilliant. We're utilizing our brain to its fullest capacity, overcomes brain fog, brain fatigue, stress. It releases serotonin, the happiness chemical, if you just do 15, 20 minutes of looking at beauty. I mean, there's a reason the internet is full of pictures of puppies and kittens and babies because we love them and they're beautiful and it releases serotonin, makes us happy. I love going to galleries. And one of the most popular things I was seeing in these galleries is what they call neuro doodles, where you just kind of let your brain make shapes and color them and shape them. And these galleries had them in there. And it's so good for your brain. Not only is it fun, it's good for you. I've seen it. And even this elderly gentleman I'm working with, he's gotten out of depression and he has to overcome that left brain perfectionism because he was really good with his right hand, but he's also finding that sometimes when I'm doing exercises with him, he forgets and is using his right hand,
Mm.
not shaking on him. Now, I'm not a scientist. I just have learned some things because I'm fascinated by watching how people get healed. They get healing emotionally, mentally. All right, here's another story for you. A woman who had been bringing her child, and I would always have the moms participate, don't just hang out, come do it. But this particular woman was fantastic at sculpture. She was so good using her hands. Very funny lady. Well, she came one day and said, Karen, I've just been given a fatal diagnosis of late stage breast cancer, given 6 months to live.
Mm.
We cried together. I said, well, look, I've got a show in 9 months. It's a whole room installation called Taste and See Sweet Shop. I'm going to make all these cakes, cookies, cupcakes, candies out of porcelain, but I want them to look like real chocolate and real cakes. Come help me do this. She's like, Karen, I don't even know if I'm going to be here in 9 months. I said, well, you'll have a legacy to leave your family. Come to the studio. So she did. Between radiation, chemo, and surgery, she was in the studio and we had a blast. We laughed, trying to figure out what glaze do we use to make dark chocolate versus milk chocolate, solving all these problems and making the pieces that we would then put together to create the cakes and the pedestals and the cupcakes and the cookies and candies and truffles. We even went shopping and found chairs to refinish and tables to make it look like a cafe. 9 months later, Jan was with me, standing proud. The 17-day show was a huge success. Next thing you know, she's in remission. And she's still here today, completely cancer-free.
Mhm. Mhm.
I know her family is convinced that having something beautiful to put her hand and mind to, something hopeful to look forward to, this big art installation, which we got to do the next year as well. We took that work to another location and got to show it again. And it's a high mark of creativity for her, and she's now cancer free. I'm convinced that there is an incredible healing power, miraculous healing power of engaging. And as Dr. Judith says, your soul, the part of you, the deep part of you, in creating a full life.
Oh, that was wonderful stories and wonderful real life examples that can happen with individuals. And one of the things I want to pull out of that you said is that you moved her away from woe is me and moved her into let's do something that's of service, that's creative, that is going to be fun and exciting to be able to do. And laughter goes a long way. And that's what the soul loves. The soul loves to laugh, be happy, be free, and feel as if, what, we got this. We can do this, be it art or any type of projects that need to be done. You develop within her, knowingly or unknowingly, degrees of confidence in her abilities because she was actually involved in the hands, and you don't realize the hands too also relate to the abilities of left and right brain. to the creativity that's being done, but the ability of the doing the details, which is left brain, to put it into action. So it becomes the whole brain that is engaged in, that is helping her to continue to evolve, grow, heal in ways that are mysterious to us, but the inner self, the inner nature of that person knows this is what we needed. Thank you.
Oh, that was beautiful. I love the way you put that. That's awesome. Absolutely. Movement is left brain. Picking up a paintbrush or a pencil or playing the piano is already going to engage both sides of the brain. So it's really easier than you think. And I'd like to invite your listeners, if I could, to a 3-part pop-up podcast for free. It's 20-minute episodes where I go into depth about a creativity and telling some of these stories, but also telling people, okay, well, they don't know how to be creative. I give them a whole bunch of ideas and some things to try. So that's found at www.getcreativewithkaren.com, and you're welcome to register for that and get those episodes. Maybe you're remembering what you loved when you were little or always wanted to get to. It's not too late. Still time to do it.
And that is so the soul is always evolving, always growing. That's not true. What is called in healthcare rate limiting step is limiting your abilities to do your best, whatever age you're at. You're making a great point. Even at 95, if you can still have that creativity and serotonin release through the creativity that's taking place, it gives you a sense of wholeness, completeness, and allows your soul to continue to know that it's thriving and growing. I think is kind of the perspective we need to take is creativity is always with us. We have to be willing to be open to it and see it in various ways. Like you saying earlier about the sunsets, just in taking and imbibing that is so enriching for the soul. Or just seeing, a beautiful, most people don't think it's beautiful though, a bumblebee, but it is beautiful.
This is
As
adorable.
long as it doesn't sting you.
Yeah, the engineers say it's impossible for it to fly the way it's built, but it does. It's a miraculous, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but it is important. Beauty is important to us as humans. It's part of our uniqueness to us, and we're engaged in the creative. We're made in the creator's image, so it's in us to be creative. And I'm saying yes, do it for your health, for your heart, for your mind, your emotions. It's good for you to be creative. And unfortunately, a lot of people have trivialized that part of us. And I'm glad there are people like you who are out making a case for the soul to be engaged in our lives. So thank you for what you do.
You're most welcome. And thank you so much for what you do in terms of finding creative ways to be able to help bring out that creativity and inspire individuals to be their best selves. And that ultimately is a gift that God has given to you to be able to do, that you're sharing with others through service, that in the different services that you are doing, which then allows now, I always talk about in some of my episodes, is figure eight flow. For the divine flowing through you, through the human, and flowing back up to the divine, and then the human, flowing back down. And in that figure eight flow flows the creativity, the inspiration, the genius points, the gifts and talents that need, because you're in flow with the divine. And God is giving and sending and guiding you in the best ways you can and know how as you surrender to the will of God. Because sometimes God says, no, you can't do no more there. Other times it's just go for it. And so we're all trying to figure out and navigate through that. But that's the process of living, and that's the process of life.
Well, that's good. And I think that's important to know too, that there are seasons of life. When I was homeschooling and nursing babies and raising children, teaching art, it wasn't really the season for me to develop my own art. That's why I went to film school in my 50s, is because I finally could have the time to do it. I spent 30 years raising children, and I feel like now I'm getting those 30 years back. You're talking about an age not mattering. My 92-year-old mother, who never considered herself creative, she's heard me giving these talks, listening to my podcast, and she called at my sister's from my sister's house the other day, and she said, I just was with my great granddaughters. And she said, you're right. She said, I always thought it was just for children. She said, doing this coloring with them was so peaceful and relaxing. We were laughing. And when your hands are busy, they can open up to you in ways that you just can't imagine. And she just felt more connected to her own creativity and to her great granddaughters, and said, wow, it felt really great. So not too old and you're not too young to start.
Exactly. And that's kind of a nice way to kind of move towards our close and talking about this creativity, inspiring soul expression. And, if there was something that you want to add on to what you want to leave with our seekers and listeners, what would it be that's kind of inspires you to say now?
What I just want to say to your listeners is what we're talking about with left brain, right brain is to have grace for yourself, to try something new. As we talk about creating a safe space where there's no criticism, shutting down that left brain bully. And you do that by having grace and saying, you know what? Give yourself the same grace you would somebody else trying something new or trying something again or picking up something you haven't done in decades. Do it and enjoy it. Find joy in the process. And I say, because I start out when I teach drawing, you can't look at your paper. Then it's not about the product. It's not engaging that critical side that says, I can't do this. It's saying, we're going to try it and we're going to have fun doing it. Just look at the object, not your paper. Okay, turn the paper over. Let's try to get something else. And they're laughing and they're enjoying it. I'm saying, does it still look like a hand? Yes, it does. And they're just enjoying the process and finding, wow, maybe I can. So I say that to you. Yes, you can.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I love the fact about enjoying the process because that's what the soul wants you to do, is
Mhm.
enjoy the process. Because
Mhm.
by enjoying the process, you continue to evolve, you continue to grow and not get stuck thinking it has to be only this particular type of outcome. So that's wonderful. It's been a great discussion. And I think it allows seekers and listeners to understand that they too are creative. And you have some skills and qualities to help individuals to be able to do that. So if they wanted to reach out to you, can you let them know that other links that you would like them to explore?
Well, thank you. Yeah, that getcreativewithkaren.com will take you to my website, which is karendeloachart.com. So either one of those will bring you basically to the same place. I am starting an art collective, kind of a group, a community with a one subscription price and be able to have access to teachings 3 times a week, being encouraged in your own creativity. So that's something that if you go to that site and tell me you're interested, please do. We'll connect because I love to do that. Connect with others on this same journey.
Excellent. Well, seekers, please go explore with Karen, our website, and enjoy. Bye for now.
Thank you for joining me for this episode on Mastering Life's Adventures, being your best self through soul evolution. If you have enjoyed what you've heard today, I would be delighted if you would share this episode with others, leave a thumbs up, and subscribe to my Mastering Life's Adventures podcast. Look forward to your joining the next episode. Please leave any comments or suggestions you might have below. Bye for now.